Hello, I'm Ellen Dunham-Jones, professor here at Georgia Tech and director of the MS in Urban Design and professor of the class on retrofitting suburbia. Delighted that we have several guests here, speakers, as well as representatives from aging in placers, and Bonnie's going to tell us a lot more about them. Commissioner Ted Terry, who has organized really this whole event, kicked off the organizing this event. We have two guests from University of Glasgow working on urban retrofits in the UK, and the students, a wide range, different degrees and everything. And I'm going to pass things on to Will Johnston, who will introduce himself and MicroLife Institute. And
great. Well, good afternoon, students, aging in placers, and the people that are on Zoom. I'm Will Johnston. I'm the executive director of the MicroLife Institute. We are a nonprofit developer here in Atlanta. We focus on missing middle housing. We focus on reweaving that social fabric back together using housing typologies and different design patterns to make sure we actually interact as humans. And so I've been working with Commissioner Ted Terry as well as Professor Ellen Dunham-Jones over the last 5 years with design studios, as well as going to conferences and just really having that bigger conversation of how do we bring better policy, better housing typologies to the different size of households that actually need smaller square footprints and smaller spaces. So we can go ahead. So obviously we know we're in a housing crisis. The issue is we need more. What are we not doing? Building enough. So the fact that we here are, knowing that we're not getting starter homes, and I also like to say we're not getting ender homes. Ender homes to me are the homes that are small square footprint, downsize your way to happiness for people to live in before they decide that they want to go to retirement care. So we need those smaller spaces peppered throughout our current landscape, suburban, urban, as well as actually everywhere. So we know we're in a crisis, but yet we're still always being that Sisyphus of pushing a hard rock up a hill because of zoning and NIMBYs and our, unfortunately, policies. So we'll go to the next slide. So why are homes so expensive? I mean, Rick Porter's probably going to talk about it too, but materials, building materials as well as labor. I mean, it takes a lot just to even build a small space. So not to mention land is ridiculous right now. So add that all together, we need the density to make the numbers work. So who does MicroLife really serve? We focus on starter homes, first-time home buyers, public sector essential workers, seniors looking to downsize, and then BIPOC individuals that have been redlined now. We want to make sure we create opportunities for generational wealth. So missing middle housing solutions, what MicroLife gets into. We love naturally affordable development. When I say that, I like to say my subsidy is density. If we can get the right number on the lot, it will pencil better. Please also tell me, I'm sure you guys are on the architects, if I'm using jargon, you'd be like, what the heck does that mean? Please tell me, pencil in, meaning
it worked financially.
Thank you. You're like my translator. I appreciate it. I can't even think of how to explain it. So we also believe in, even though I know density seems to be a 4-letter word with everything in the government, so we like to put gentle in front of it so it's less scary. So really we're just trying to look at the parcels to say, all right, what number of units actually makes sense to get our price down on the infrastructure as well as the vertical. Go back one. Increased sense of community. Again, we need more third spaces. We need to be able to gather. So a lot of suburbia, we're stuck. I mean, Atlantans, we know we have to get into a car and participate about 100% of our lives getting into a car, going to destination. And then we just need more diverse options. Like, unfortunately, we have shrunk our pool. Like, we have a lot of car choices. Why can't we have that many in the home worlds? So you've probably seen this lovely chart. MicroLife really focuses on the missing middle, duplexes all the way up to live work. Has anyone not seen this chart yet? All right, we got one, but Gary, you're cool. You're cool. You're good. All right. So housing choice, that also is something else that we're saying a lot of because unfortunately we have made small homes illegal. We have made small lots illegal because of our zoning. That is a huge issue in DeKalb County, which is a lot of our, I think, aging in placers know, but a dominant number of homes in DeKalb County were built in the 1950s and 60s, and they're only like 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. Yet, the minimum square footprint in some policies starts at 1,400. So again, why are we telling people what size of homes they need to build, as well as we also make it illegal to build on smaller lots? I think the smallest lot size in DeKalb is 2,500, 2,400. Could be something like that. So again, my house that you'll see on, we can keep going, Ellen. My house that I'll show you is a 500 square foot home on 1,600 square feet of land. So again, it works, but we also need to show that it's possible. Quick little model, 700,000, 300,000. Obviously using the land a little bit differently, putting different sizes of homes on the same acreage. Cottage court. So this is definitely what MicroLife focuses on. How do we use common area to gather? Features: central green space, clustered parking, balanced public and private realm, and flexible amenities. So I live in the red house. So if anyone wants to come to Clarkston, you can come visit me. This was eight houses on a half acre. We've won global recognition because we did this. Honestly, thanks to Commissioner Ted Terry, who was then mayor at the time, because he saw that Clarkston needed homes, and the fact that we worked together to get this done was literally a zoning miracle. Current project, we've got cottages on Cochrane and Union City. This is going to eventually be an 18-unit, 2-acre parcel ranging from 800 to 1,200 square feet. Cottage at Midway, which is in unincorporated DeKalb, and maybe my future home site. Another 2-acre lot with 18 units ranging from 800 to 1,200 square feet. Windsor Osborne. So MicroLife, we stepped into helping cities talk through commercial. I think a lot what you're going to be doing is helping cities visualize what could be done. Cities are actually finally realizing they could be their own developers, or at least understand what they want done. And then they can hold that golden ticket in front of a developer and say, build this. So MicroLife helped do this design concept for Brookhaven around a roundabout to create that city center that allows them for people to gather. We could add residential above, but then create the right density around it that supports the commercial. Claremont Cottage, another example within Brookhaven, bodega, fourplex, cottage courts. Oops, go back. Keep going. And then I'm actually excited. I just told Ellen that we got appropriations from Warnock. We got 1.71 million to build these 10 units down in Lyons, Georgia, which is the South Georgia town right next to Vidalia. So we're just really excited. So again, all of our projects are near amenities, whether it be a downtown, walkable, connected community. We want to make sure we're close to something, not just build it in the middle of nowhere. And then we did this concept for Milford, Delaware. So this is a 7-acre single family and cottage court design that we're hoping to be brought on in Q3 of this year. So again, I say all that to say is that we need more housing options because aging in place. One of the biggest concerns that I talk to a lot of potential clients, and what I hear is that they don't have the choices to be able to downsize and stay within their own neighborhood. So how do we allow for ADUs, duplexes, cottage courts, and be able to assimilate and create the same characteristics of what the neighborhood already exists as, and be able to build something that allows the ebb and flow and choice within one neighborhood. I kind of already went through this quickly, but yeah, we can keep going. Aging in place, accessible home design, flexible housing types, walkable neighborhoods. I mean, it really is like, why would you want to live there, and what could you do walking out your front door and make it a lot easier on your life? If you didn't know, a lot of retirees are buying up rural Georgia that is walkable. So people are buying up Macon, Dublin, even Cleveland, Georgia. They're finding any small town that is starting to revitalize, that they're like, oh, I don't want to be in my car anymore, and I want to be able to walk out my front door and go do a majority of the things I get into during the day. Georgia Tech's role, I mean, you know why we're here?
I hope so.
I hope so.
I'll explain a little more of that. I'll get into that.
Keep going. So also for my aging in placers online and in person, DeKalb County is going through a rewrite right now. So this is very important. This is an opportune moment to really create some great language that sticks with you, to throw at some commissioners to freak them out, and also some planning and zoning people to be like, being able to use their lingo right back at them could really be beneficial in our rewrite. And then key dates, you already know this. I'm also talking to the aging in placers online. Obviously, we are here. March 17th will be a quick little prep of what we're going to expect for the tour on March 19th. And March 19th is going to be the tour itself, as well as dinner for those participating. And then the final is April 16th back here in person. Quick little caveat for all the aging in placers online. There's been so much interest that we are going to have to pare down because there are not enough students for the clients. So
not enough students with cars.
Okay, that's true too. So we got to make sure that Ellen's going to give me her final number, and then I'm going to match up the aging in placers with students hopefully by the end of next week. So, but don't worry, Bonnie's going to keep you up to date because we still want you involved because this is a lot of good stuff.
So super quick question, just based on what you've seen, all the cottage courts, how many folks, raise your hands, and I'm going to keep doing this throughout the next 3 hours. How many of you just sort of think, yeah, cottage courts, that's a good idea. That should be pursued. Okay, I see a show of quite a lot of hands. Those of you online, please feel free to send up little balloons and stuff.
Yeah, use your emojis.
Exactly.
And then, March 19th breakdown. Look at that. Yeah, there you go. You can just see it too. This is great. Keep this really entertaining. Find some fun ones. All right, Ellen, over to you.
So from the pedagogical perspective, the goals of this student project are, one, to just help every one of us to be able to age in place. Two, help everyone in DeKalb County understand and be able to see what the impacts could be to their homes and neighborhoods of zoning changes that would assist aging in place. And so I am not promising that the students are not going to give you a full set to be ready to build projects or anything. They're really going to produce ideas and images, visualizations that hopefully will help Commissioner Terry, when he's fighting for those zoning changes, to convince folks, hey, this is what it would look like. Is that really so bad? Why are you are you really afraid of this or not? And now who knows what the students will produce? Maybe some people will be scared of some of what comes out. I don't really know. So the types of students, we have some students whom I hope are going to be working on zoning rewrite language, some on mobility plans, instructions on setting up a villaging network, a little bit on public and private cost benefit guidelines. But the majority of the students are going to be working on a different house retrofit types and working with a client, and there will often be probably two, sometimes there might be two students, each working on a different retrofit type for the same client. But to just explore possibilities at both the scale of the individual residents and, all right, what if several homes in that neighborhood modified in relation to that zoning change, what would it look like? So this is the list of the house retrofit types, and I'm going to whiz through them really quickly right now. Shared backyards. We all know that, the lot describes the yard, and in some places they're even required to have a fence, but even if there isn't an actual fence, most people like to think of their backyard as purely private space. And that was probably especially useful when you had little kids. Now, as many of you are, I think as one is aging, there might be more opportunities to think about, I'd like more interaction. I'd like to actually share some things. So I've got 1980, Dolores Hayden, a professor at Yale, proposed this transformation of a hypothetical neighborhood with lots. and putting in, a big vegetable garden, an outdoor table, an outdoor kitchen, a daycare, in this case, dial-a-ride. It was early, that was 1980. Today, all over the internet, you can find lots of examples like this one where neighbors just decided to link their yards with a table, have the fence fold down and becomes a table when they want to. There's so many things. Other sites online, I mean, you could, as you begin to share spaces in the backyards, potlucks, yoga, movie nights, raised bed gardens, chicken coops, fire pit, pizza oven, the list goes on and on. So how many people think the idea of shared backyards, does that scare you? That like, no way, I like my privacy? Or how many people think shared backyards might be a good idea? Okay, online, okay. We got a heart, nice, okay.
I'm just curious, who's gonna be cutting the grass?
Sorry?
Who's gonna be cutting the grass?
Well, you gotta work those things out. Lots of things that have to be worked out once it becomes communal. Now, some of us in the room remember the Golden Girls. Who wants to explain to the students? Anyway, it was.
Yeah, who can the students know who this is? Yeah.
No. But this was a hit TV show that popularized the idea of intergenerational widows sharing a house and a lot of laughs. And they didn't really live there. The house is actually recently went for sale and it's like $1 gazillion because it was the Golden Girls. Village, but the larger idea of villaging also emerged around this time that the TV show was on as an idea of that individual homeowners, to assist aging in place, would set up networks of care to foster interdependence amongst neighbors. And I think that for lots of different kinds of tasks, and that might be something that we also would work on. But so, Golden Girls is an example of a roommate house. Roommate houses, so they can be single family homes converted, and we're going to see Monte Anderson is with us, and he'll tell us all about the house on the right here that is a roommate house that he, a fancy one. But roommate houses can also be a way to bring in short or long-term rental income, or a live-in helper or a caretaker. San Francisco has what's called the roommate exchange, bridging the gap between seniors and students. Other places, the Netherlands also has a sort of nationwide, so to help students can live, if not for free, close to it, if they help a senior. And there's roommate housing, Davis Fox will explain for us the code requirements, because there are, if it's a family member renting from you, or just moving in with you, who knows, the government doesn't need to know if they're paying you money or not. But if you're renting, that's currently pretty illegal in most localities. But there are ways to sort of hack some of the codes, and there's actually a house hack catalog online that kind of tells you details, gives you ideas of kind of how to try to do these roommate houses. So just in general, roommate houses, does that sound like something people would find attractive? Lot of attention. The students especially like that one. Okay, nice. Duplexes. Now, the language here is what really, I'm going to look to Davis to help us especially distinguish. At what point is it a mother-in-law suite? At what point is it a roommate? At what point is it a duplex? Duplex means converting the home into two properties. They may be owned by the same person, or it may become a condominium type of an arrangement. Duplexes can be side by side, so you sort of get two front doors on the street. Quite common around. You see a lot of that in sort of the older pre-war neighborhoods. I lived in an up and down duplex when I was teaching up in Boston, and so when it's often a duplex, you really can't tell from the street. I mean, yeah, if you look, oh, there are two front doors. Okay, that is a duplex. But otherwise, it fits in to the neighborhood. And then there's cases where, okay, this up down, you might have wanted to have had a zoning code regulation that said, don't put the stairs right in front of a window. That does not look good. That's bad. Let's avoid. So duplexes, sometimes the addition is in the rear, taking advantage of yard space. Most duplexes, the codes will require some kind of a kitchen. That might mean a hot plate and a microwave, a bathroom, separate entry, and fire separation. In-law suites can be coded differently, and this gets into family issues that Davis was going to talk about a little bit. Accessory dwelling units, ADUs, come in all sizes. They can be attached to the original house, they can be detached, they can be built on site, or they can be prefabricated. So here's just a couple of examples of, here's an ADU put in the front yard, so bringing the house a little closer. Sometimes, in this case, it's a carriage house, apartment above an expanded garage, or it can be a freestanding in front of the backyard. There are several versions that can be prefabricated. The Wind River Built in Chattanooga makes this particular one for 150 grand. You can have it delivered, all made. The Granny Pod is also a med cottage and has infrastructure built into it to, in particular, really assist aging in place. And that one's been around for a long time. There are lots of those that have been built. In addition to accessory dwelling units, there are accessory commercial units. So here's just a real, super simple. Somebody turned their garage into a cafe. Here, the living room was turned into a business office. Nothing else changed on the street, but, is that a welcome idea, or does that seem like no, we shouldn't have other uses in a residential neighborhood, or would you like more other uses in a residential neighborhood? That's I think so. And then sometimes the commercial units, here, again, they're usually accessory commercial units usually are visible from the street, and so the garage, they often are taking the place of a garage. So, and in East Nashville has some really great infill micro retail and little corner stores. Corner stores are coming back in a lot of neighborhoods. These little micro retail in Nashville, they fit on a single family lot, but you get sort of 8 little pods in a row. So, all right, we're getting some love for a little bit of retail, help make life a little more convenient. And then lastly, lot splits. It refers to dividing your lot into 2 separate residential parcels that can be owned independently, often in what's termed a flag lot. So here in this diagram, the green refers to, you see, basically you get a long skinny driveway and then a chunk of the backyard that's a flag lot, and allows then for a whole lot more housing to get built and a whole lot more people to be able to live in proximity. So those are my kind of charge to the architecture students, especially, to be bouncing around ideas for the clients, any and all of those. And with that, I want to turn things over to Davis. Davis, you're online. Just tell me when to advance the slides.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Good to be here. I am a retired city planner. I have been doing consulting work for Commissioner Ted Terry for the last few years. And prior to that, I worked for his predecessor for 10 years, principally working on zoning matters as a policy analyst. I served for 10 years on the Planning Commission in DeKalb County, and I also served on the Atlanta Regional Commission Board of Directors. So I'm very familiar with DeKalb's zoning ordinances and history. And I want to take you through very quickly a backdrop of what the zoning is for senior housing and aging in place in DeKalb. Okay. Um, First, as Will indicated, DeKalb County is zoned for single-family detached homes. 65% of the land zoned in DeKalb County is zoned for single-family homes. That's a lot of land. And the code defines family. In case you didn't know what a family was, your local zoning code does. In DeKalb County, one of the bright spots is that ADUs are permitted by right. That's sort of air quotes because there's some rules that come with that, and we'll talk about them in a second. Senior housing is permitted in most anywhere, but you need to change the zoning through a special land use permit.
Davis,
So
can
it's
you,
not easy.
I'm interrupting Davis for just a second, but can you define SLUP?
Yes, it's a special land use permit.
Thank you.
And it's essentially a rezoning request. You have to go through public hearings to get there. Senior housing is really defined in such a way that it's really the large scale developments that have, rather multi-story buildings, generally with medical services or clinics or central kitchen or recreation amenities. Those really large scale retirement communities is really what the code is talking about here. And then there's also an option that I think we need to look at more carefully, and they're called personal care homes. They're also permitted by SLUPs, and they are allowed in single family neighborhoods, and they involve 24-hour supervision. And generally, these are often used by people that maybe need assistance and help. But I think there's an opportunity to reimagine them a little bit. Okay, let's take a look at single family zoning. Single means single. It's one house per lot, and it's no duplexes, no triplexes. It's just a single family house. It's a quarter acre lot or bigger, required with a house of 16 to 2,000 square feet. There's a maximum lot coverage, and there's a sizable front yard requirement and a sizable rear yard requirement. And you have this definition of family. And in DeKalb, a family is designed as one or more individuals who are related by blood, marriage, adoption, guardianship, or three or fewer individuals who are not related, but living together and functioning as a household. That is, they share meals together, they share common space, it's a little loose definition, and frankly, it's a very difficult definition to enforce. But it's really the intent is probably more oriented to control student housing than anything else. Okay, and we do permit small single family lots, and we do permit cottage court housing and townhouses and other forms of housing, but there's no land zone for it. You've got to rezone to get that land. Okay, let's talk about ADUs. In DeKalb, the accessory dwelling unit, the homeowner must live on the site. He can live in the ADU or he can live in the main house. The ADU could be a garage, a basement. It could be part of a main structure. It could be a separate building. If it is a separate building, it has to be in the rear yard. It's a maximum of 900 square feet, and there's only one ADU per house. One of the difficulties for some people is it has to have an additional paved off-street parking space. And the other difficulty about ADUs is, to build one, it might cost $100,000. And so you're likely to require a home equity mortgage, and you've got to qualify for that. Often, so there's a question about utilities, and usually they come through the main house. All right. Effectively, the options for seniors are pretty simple and limited. You can age in place by adapting your single-family house, add ramps, add the grab bars, and perhaps widen some doors. You can add up to 2 roommates and still meet that definition of family. You could use an accessory dwelling unit, but again, the costs are we've discussed. A personal care home might allow you to stay in your neighborhood if you can find one, but everything else is going to require a rezoning. The things that Ellen was talking about that are more that involve new construction or smaller lots or duplexes or so forth are going to require a change in zoning. So what are the options? Well, we could allow multiple ADUs on site. We could reduce that parking requirement or eliminate it. We could remove the homeowner requirement. In other words, you could have an ADU without homeowners. And we could be a little more flexible on size. Why is 900 square feet the maximum? I don't know. There is no minimum for ADUs. We could also add standards for micro units. And these units might be kind of a little bit more than a bedroom, like a studio, that doesn't have a kitchen. And right now, we don't have an accommodation for these in the zoning code, but there's certainly, there should be an option for one. For the single family districts, we need to consider redefining what a family is so that we can allow co-housing a little bit more, a little easier. We could allow duplexes and triplexes in single family neighborhoods. I live in a neighborhood that was built before the war, before World War II. There are duplexes in my neighborhood. If you drive down the street, you wouldn't even recognize them as duplexes because the way they're designed and such, the doors are sort of separate and kind of, they just look like a door to the front porch or something else. And it's very possible to include duplexes and to fit in very easily with single family developments. One thing we might want to think about age-friendly neighborhood designation. It's sort of think about it as an overlay, which DeKalb has a lot of. But maybe in this area, duplexes and triplexes are permitted, or maybe more flexible housing stock is permitted, or smaller lots are permitted. And neighborhoods, may want to be designated as age-friendly, just as some neighborhoods want to be designated as wildlife-friendly. Why not be age-friendly? And the other thing we could do is, we could make it much easier to streamline the permitting process if there is one for ramps and things like that seniors need to age in place sometimes. As Will noted, NIMBYism is alive and well, and we're probably going to have to take baby steps to move forward. This personal care home, again, I think it's something that we might want to think about differently and allow them administratively in single family districts. Currently, there's 1,000-foot separation. Two can't be within 1,000 feet of one another. I think that could be eliminated. And I think we could consider these more like rooming houses than personal care homes. And this might be something that could be used for churches or schools or other larger community buildings. Finally, we didn't get here overnight. This has taken, a half century or more to get here. We have these single-family homes, this car dependency. It's based on the experiences and conditions in the 1950s and 1960s in metropolitan Atlanta when new highways were built and white flight began out of the city of Atlanta. Um, we're we're on the tail end of that. Our zoning code needs to reflect today's values, not the values of the 1950s and 60s. We also need to build the mixed-use centers that are envisioned in our comprehensive land use plan. These are the ideal location for future seniors to age in place. These are going to be places with multiple businesses where people can live and engage with other people and with the businesses that they need on a daily basis. That's it for me. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'd like to ask Commissioner Terry to come and say a few words.
Thank you, Ellen. Thanks again for everyone's participation in this little project. I've often called Will or Ellen and had these crazy ideas to do things like this. But the main reason we are doing this, as you'll hear, you heard from Will and you'll hear from Bonnie, there are a lot of societal changes happening in America, in the world, and of course DeKalb County is experiencing those just like every other community. We try to be progressive in DeKalb County, but sometimes it takes a while to bring new ideas to the forefront. And I've often found that Ellen's students, with her guidance and with folks like Will and the community, can actually help us envision something that maybe we haven't thought of, or maybe something that had been thought of, but in a different way. Or even more in particular, something that is, in our case, something that is good for DeKalb, that's right for DeKalb County. One statistic that Will was starting to get into, but he didn't mention it, talking about how much of DeKalb is single family. DeKalb not only is high single family zoned area, we're also mostly developed. And I know Rick knows about this because he was part of that in the 80s and 90s. But we did a study about 2 years ago. We found that about 97% of DeKalb County unincorporated is already developed. Right? And so when you think about retrofitting, this is really the sweet spot for what Ellen's been working on for many years, is we have to figure out to make do with what we already have. There's not a lot of just virgin land left over. So this is really an opportunity for y'all to be creative and help us try to put some of those creative ideas, hopefully into practical use, not just this year, but in the years to come. We want to take this opportunity as we update our zoning code to hopefully create some pathways that will seriously address aging in place. When we address aging in place, we're actually supporting the entire community. One thing that I know my DeKalb residents will know about and is making a lot of people anxious is the announcement that came out last week that the DeKalb County school system is going to close maybe 26 schools. And they're going to expand a couple, I think 5 or 6. And you can kind of chart where maybe more progressive development, economic development, investment has gone in DeKalb County, because that's where you're seeing the growth in families and the school system wants to expand schools. But in parts of South DeKalb, Central, Southeast DeKalb, a lot of elementary, middle, and even high schools are being closed, merged, and sort of dispersed. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have not kept up with the demand and growth, with the starter homes, the indoor homes. I don't know if I like that exactly, Will, but the aging in place homes. But maybe more to the point, thinking about communities as maybe they once were, maybe decades ago, or maybe even thousands of years ago. Intergenerational, the village. When you have a community where the old, the young, and everyone in between live together, work together, play together, support each other, it actually creates an opportunity for us to address some of these other challenges that we have in our society. A big debate we're having right now in DeKalb County is the cost of childcare. And we literally have employees who are saying childcare is actually becoming the second highest expense in my monthly budgets. And that's on top of housing costs going up and transportation costs going up. And so as we're trying to solve a housing problem, we can actually start to solve some other problems in society that can support the overall community and hopefully not just make things more affordable, but make things more connected. And this is really what this project is about, is to think holistically in those ways. So I look forward to the discussion today. I look forward to the next 2 months hearing what y'all come up with. I really want to give a shout out to my aging in placers because they're not only my constituents, they're voters, they're taxpayers, they pay my salary. And so this is for them. This is for y'all to help support where you are yourself in your life, but also help your neighbors and your community at large now and into the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jen. Got one more speaker before we go for sort of a Q&A to all of this first round of speakers. So Bonnie, you're going to close us out on this first round.
First of all, I gotta get some water. Excuse me, my allergies. What can I say? What can I say? Okay, thank you. Let's see.
Do you want to hold the mouse or do you want me to just advance? Just look at me and I'll advance.
You can advance. Okay. I had to ask one of the students over here. I was sitting over there and I started to cough and I said, he closed the windows because there was sound coming in. And I sat over there because I needed to get some fresh air. So I had to ask him, can you open that one, please? He said, he was very polite and he did that. Okay. Hello, I am Bonnie Davis. Yeah, there it is. I am Bonnie Davis, leader of the Aging in Placers Initiative. And I am thrilled and honored to be here today to introduce the students to the Aging in Placers. I have some notes here because my Aging in Placers know that I can quickly go off script and start getting, because I'm passionate about this. So, okay, next slide, please. Let me get out of the way. Okay, so I am going to cover who we are, what those survey results show, the surveys that we sent out to the Aging in Placers who are signing up, and potential benefits for us Aging in Placers from this project. Now note when I'm talking, I'm going to primarily focus on homes. I'm not going to get into neighborhoods in my presentation. Okay, who are we, these Aging in Placers? We are adults, age 55 plus, and supportive generations. That's supportive so that we can get young folks like you working with us, okay? And supportive generations working together to shape how our community supports housing options for aging in place for DeKalb County. Now, the Aging in Places Initiative has a strong focus on options that help older adults remain safe, independent, and comfortable in our chosen homes and communities. Now for us, not yet. For us, keywords, options chosen. Some of you, I don't know, may have heard, this goes back to 20 years ago. When Aging in Place first came out, there was a great, discussion about it. A great definition by the CDC. Living in one's own home and community. A few years ago, I changed that to chosen home and community because we may choose to live in different homes. We may choose to stay in our current homes, but we also may choose to move. And what do we need if we're going to choose to move? Thank you. We need options. So those are key for us, chosen and options. Oh, my back. Okay, so I need to point out because often people ask me, well, what about the Atlanta Regional Commission? Yes, absolutely. we embrace the Atlanta Regional Commission's Lifelong Learning Communities Initiative. We're for that. Thank you. All right. Our Aging in Placers, our mission has 3 pillars, right? Educate, advocate, and build community. So educate equips us with trusted, practical knowledge to navigate aging in place in the county, DeKalb County. Then advocate, we champion policy and community changes that improve safety, affordability, and housing choice. And then build community. Yes, we are going to take Commissioner Terry bowling because he has been asking us, let's go bowling, right? So this means host social activities that bond and inspire residents across, again, intergenerational, across generations. All right, now let's get to that design project survey results. The survey results showed what we usually hear from people who want to age in place, right? Covering safe, affordable, accessible housing. And once I put the numbers in, let me qualify. This data is from data that I pulled Sunday morning when we had 42 people had registered, right? We got some additional, but this is based on the number 42. So I broke it down into 3 areas, or 3 categories. And this first one, the biggest one, was biggest needs center on safe, affordable, and accessible housing. And then there's a list there. I won't go into details about that, but you got your home maintenance, high housing and utility costs, neighborhood walkability, bathroom safety, because fall risk major for older adults, stairs and accessible. Okay. All right, then 2 other categories, community and support needs. Not enough help or support nearby, noise, feeling unsafe, and transportation. I'm surprised that transportation wasn't up higher, but anyway, transportation. And then some additional concerns, right? Access to healthcare or essential services, senior isolation, and people often forget about this, isolation and loneliness, and mobility, moving around inside the home. Now, I'm so happy that all of these great speakers went before me because they covered a lot that I'm going to wrap up around in here. Now, what are the potential project benefits? What you students do, what's the potential for that helping us, older adults wanting to age in place? Now, we saw when I summarized, I had 3 categories, right? Safe, affordable, accessible homes, community and support needs, additional concerns. Well, when I wrap that with, we hear some things earlier, accessory dwelling units, accessory commercial units, duplexes, subdivided lots, home garage converted to live work commercial, shared yards, front and back, right? And then roommates or maybe co-living. You've heard about that. And thank you so much, Professor, for presenting that, even with images for everybody to get a good picture of that. But, and other, there's more. Now, my aging in placers will say, now, wait a minute. What is all of this that's wrapping around? How is that going to help us? Really? You're talking buildings, changing the buildings. What's that going to do for us? How is that going to make me less lonely? How is that going to provide support for me? Am I sure that it's going to be accessible? Next slide, please. Here we go. If we always, and we want you guys to always keep in mind, and we can send you the slides, what our concerns are. Please keep those in mind. And then we want you to, of course, as the commissioner said, help us to think about some creative, unique, new ways to do things, to age in place. But so always keep that in mind. But then we started to think about there are some benefits from this for us, right? Okay, there could be increased income. You heard the professor talk about maybe rental property. So some money can come in from that to increase affordability. The roommates or co-living for shared expenses. And what about the companionship? The Golden Girls was one of my favorite shows, okay? And I will watch reruns now. But anyway, roommates, co-living. So you're getting into, I want you students to start to say, I see now. It's not just the physical buildings, but this can have an impact on the older adults aging in place. The ADUs to downsize and or right size. I know specifically of someone in Decatur who this gentleman turned his house over to his daughter and son-in-law, his big house. He built an ADU in the backyard. Now that was a nice ADU, but he built an ADU in the backyard. He moved there. His daughter-in-law, his daughter and son-in-law lived in the big house. So that was upsizing for them, downsizing for him. They were there together as a family, and they kept the property in the family. So that's a beautiful example. Let me mention, I know my time is probably over. Let me mention, right close to where I live, one day I'm walking out and I'm like, wait just a minute, what's happening here? There's a gentleman that's building an ADU. And I went over and talked to him. I'll write an article about that. I'll let you guys know about that. So ADUs, right, downsize and right size. And what about having a room, an ADU or inside or in the back to help with support and with care, right? And again, I mentioned the relationships and more. All right, I'm getting close. Potential project benefits. So this is, again, I'm saying, close to wrap up. Please, students, remember who we are and our needs. Provide ideas to widen our view of options for aging in place. We want you to be creative and help us to think more broadly. If possible, give us provide cost revenue expectations. My agent in place are like, what? They're talking all these physical changes. Bonnie, where are we going to get that money? Right? So if we can have some possible cost revenue expectations. And here we go. Zoning impacts. DeKalb County is at a pivotal point right now. We have the opportunity to update the zoning code. That is so important for us. Right now, we can, working with Davis, you listening? We can work with Davis Fox to come up with some specifics for how we can request changes to support aging in place. So we want you to think about that. And I think you said somebody is looking at zoning, right, impacts. We got to look at what's currently permitted and zoning changes required and anything additional that Davis Fox will help us come to. And tonight, we are here, we will begin part of advocacy. Something I didn't mention earlier, when I said educate, advocate, build community. Tonight, this is late now, we are already starting to do that with this process, right? We're gathered, we're building community, we're learning, we're educating, and we are also advocating tonight for you guys to start thinking about plans for phase 2. I know you didn't know there were phases, and there might be somebody else working this other phase, but hey, start thinking about it. You might get creative and give us some suggestions. Plans for phase 2. We do need to know when you come up with these grand ideas, at some point we got to go to phase 2 and say funding sources for retrofits, right? And we need to know about legal ramifications. I talked to someone yesterday. She and her daughter decided, let's have an ADU. Okay, I said, watch. She's looking at her watch. Let's build, and I told you I go off track. She and her daughter are considering an ADU because they want to live closer. The discussion broke down early on. Once they started to try to agree on the legality of these physical properties. So we want to learn more about that and anything that's additional. All right. So just so you guys know, and I have some of the cards I'm going to pass around. We are Aging in Places. We are on Commissioner Terry's website, Aging in Places. And we're older adults, but we are also on Instagram. We are on Instagram. Hey, we got some young people working with us. Let me admit it. Okay. Instagram, and you know, everybody knows the older folks on Facebook, right? You know that. Okay. And Facebook. So search for us. We're there. And we're ready for the next slide. Do I have anything else? Thank you. So very excited that you are working with us. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Bonnie. That was fantastic. I'm sorry that you saw me look at my watch.
Right.
I do want to, my job is to be the timekeeper here.
I know.
So we have about 15 minutes for questions for the speakers you've already heard from. Questions for Will, for me, for Davis, for Bonnie, for Ted, Commissioner Terry. Yeah, I sometimes just call him Ted, but Commissioner Terry. He's also a student here now, so I'm kind of allowed. Questions online, in person. Okay, I say a question. I'm going to call on James White from Glasgow.
Hi guys, that was really interesting, thank you. My question is, how controversial are the proposed changes to the zoning code? Are these things that the public at large may embrace, or are they things that are going to be pretty challenging to get through the DeKalb County?
Commissioner Terry, why don't you start, and maybe Davis, if you could, I don't know if you could quite hear the question. Could you hear?
I couldn't hear it that well.
Okay, but we'll let Commissioner Terry.
Yeah, great question. We're expecting that there's gonna be folks who don't want anything to change.
Commissioner Terry, watch. So this green guy is
Okay.
kind of weird.
We're definitely expecting that there will be people who don't want anything to change. And we have just launched the zoning update. So we're really just in like the information gathering stage. I think we're gonna have some charrettes like in May. So that'll be the first opportunity for the public to show up, and then you'll start to hear things. But I mean, I would argue that zoning is so personal because it's like about your property or your neighborhood or your investment. So there is a lot of fear, I think, around that, which is really why we want to do this. We want to create some examples, some ideas, some images, things that in folks' mind, they don't think what could happen. We could show them what could happen.
I think the visualizations are really key for that, because too often, I think, especially certainly in the US, I'm sure it's the same in the UK. The word density, and people just assume, oh, you mean massive buildings and that there, I won't get any sunlight. They just assume, and when we said no, we're just talking about a duplex. You won't even know the difference. But so it's the visualizations to kind of show that, yes, this can actually have a really significant impact socially, economically. And is it going to really be such a big impact visually or not? Maybe it will be a big impact, but it's one that people love. So that challenge is sort of up to the fourth.
And I'm going to add one more thing, especially with Bonnie's initiative with Commissioner Terry about aging in place and getting these folks activated and be able to talk about it, because usually, no offense, but the seniors are usually the ones that show up and say no to a lot of our projects. So helping them understand that they have choices and they need to be a part of this, and getting it in now is going to help us with the better outcome, even if, as Davis said, baby steps. Commissioner Terry and I have tried to take larger steps, and it has not worked. But also, you've seen the city of Atlanta try to take a larger step, and again, the education wasn't there enough to back the zoning rewrite, and so it blew up in the face of that effort.
I was just curious about this new zoning. When it comes in place, will properties that don't heed to the new zoning how will they be affected, or will they?
Davis, did you hear that question?
Yes, I did. So, any changes that are made, you'll be allowed to continue to use your property as you're currently using it. Zoning always allows for the existing uses to sort of remain in place and continue.
Thank you.
There are some unusual circumstances where you might become I forget the term now, all of a sudden, a non-conforming use, but that's unlikely.
So we have a question online. Dr. J. Moore asks, what are you looking for to decide who will be the lucky aging in placers who will be the clients?
Oh, that's on me?
So, well, I'll explain a little bit.
This is your class.
Well, I know.
Answer, no.
I will explain a little bit of, it's a balancing act, but literally, I can't dictate the student's time much more outside, that much outside of the class time. I am asking the students to come to DeKalb County outside of class once and a couple hours in the afternoon, but there's just a limit to how many, and there's only so many students have cars to be able to go and visit only so many homes. So it's going to be a combination of looking at who lives kind of close to each other.
Yeah.
And we'd like to get some variety of the types of neighborhoods, because the actual housing types and the lot sizes of a 1960s neighborhood versus a 1970s, 1980s, 1990s are really quite different. So it would, that's sort of how I'm thrilled that we have so many choices. And I apologize in advance for anyone who really wants to be chosen, but who isn't. But I hope that you will all still participate by coming to the final review. And that will be on April 16th here at Tech from 5 till 8 p.m. And that's open to all the aging in placers, whether or not it really was your home. And really for the people who are chosen to be a client and to have the students come over to their house, it's still, we're kind of just asking you to be a bit of a guinea pig, you know, be willing. It's not that the students are going to experiment using your house and addressing your concerns, assuming that those are broadly spread. And they're not going to get into a whole ton of detail. So hopefully it will be of value to everyone. And hopefully Will and I together will make good, intelligent choices on that.
And if you really want to get in good graces with Ellen, you can make a donation to the Georgia Tech Architectural Foundation.
Thank you, Will. Always the case. So a follow-up? Yeah.
Not really. This question would probably be answered later on in the program, but I'm gonna ask it now also. What's the cost?
So this is the School of Architecture. We also have a School of Building Construction that has the real estate program. And but the students in my class really are not cost estimators, they're designers. And I do not promise that we are going to have much information very specific. We're lucky to have a student in the class who has some real estate experience who is going to come up with guidelines.
But our goal too is to hopefully be able to continue this conversation. This isn't just done in this semester, meaning you just don't get a fun design and say, thanks for participating. Commissioner Terry and I are definitely talking about how we continue this on to the next semester, or in a way into DeKalb County, so then we can actually create costs for the changes that the students come up with. So this isn't just a one and done. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned on the cost. Rita Valenti online, can you unmute and ask your question?
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you all for the very informative presentation. Davis, it's good to see you. It's been a while.
Hello, Rita.
Hello, Davis. My primary, well, first of all, I think this is a very forward, visionary approach to housing and housing affordability, and density and all of those issues. I think it has that potential. I guess my concern, perhaps as a senior, is a little bit more immediate. How does this question of choice that Miss Bonnie articulated so well apply to people who do own their own home, but are often being squeezed out as large developments occur that certainly increase density enormously, but potentially also increase property taxes. And given that, and I can't speak for all seniors by any means, but recognizing that a lot of seniors are living on fixed incomes with very modest savings. And a lot of the things that are being discussed, say, for example, the ADUs, which I think is a terrific idea, cost a lot of money. So how are those things, being considered within the more immediate future as this more visionary plan can take root? Thank you.
Rita, I would, if this was a design studio and the students had the time to really dive much more deeply, we would explore a lot more of that. And those are really policy but in my experience, it's a super important discussion. It's a policy discussion. It's not a design discussion. So the planners absolutely, I think, get into that in more detail than we will in this particular class, but certainly in follow-up, there will be opportunities. But I think the point that I want to reinforce the point that Bonnie made, that for folks who either are feeling, hey, the property taxes are going up, how am I going to pay for this? That frankly, if they can find a way to bring in rental income, that might be answer their problem. It might, if they're having problems with the bathroom and fear of falling, it might be that the new bathroom that gets built is theirs and the renter is going to use the one that they're a little afraid of, or where there isn't the 0-step entrance and all of that. So the opportunities, both I think from a financial point of view and, are to actually try to leverage a lot of these things. But I don't pretend that I have the answer, or that my students have the answers in terms of all the policy and the cost issues. That will be for a follow-up class. That will be for follow-up discussions in the county. What my students are really good at is producing visualizations and designs, and to see how does this impact an individual house and how does it impact a larger neighborhood in ways to try to support the zoning changes. And that doesn't mean that the zoning changes shouldn't also include all sorts of prescriptions about affordable housing and anti-displacement measures, but that is not the actual focus. So it's a great point. I completely agree with it, but I don't want to give a false impression that this is what most of my students really have the skills. That is not, there are other students and classes that have more skills on those policy questions and the language on that. We will focus some on zoning language, but we are mostly focusing on visualizations.
I'll just throw out, Rita, contact me. I'd love for you to join us at the DeKalb Housing Roundtable. We're also, waiting for the commissioners to vote on the 100 million, not 100 million. Was it 100 million? 100 million housing? What, 150 million?
Was.
Okay. Anyways, this is also going to help us give us fodder to future projects to bring to the county and work with other organizations that address exactly what you just asked. So, student.
Well, I know, and I am the timekeeper, and I'm sorry, and I know that you guys are going to be leaving even a little bit, so I'm going to say we're going to take a 10-minute break. The restrooms are down the hall. Students can also help show you where to find restrooms. And maybe we can continue discussions during the break, but we'll come back in 10 minutes, and at 6:20, Rick Porter will be presenting.
Rita, are you still there?
Yeah, yes, Bonnie, I'm here, dear. Yeah.
Rita, I should probably know this. Are you an aging in placer?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, I've been to a couple of the meetings, Bonnie, not all of them, but
I'll look you up on that list and contact you.
okay, do you have my, okay. Do you want my email or? Because
On a lot of health and like that. So your number
We never take them. That's all. Yeah.
the rewriting of the zoning code.
Okay, so they're not like rezoning first.
No.
Just don't have any-
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not a zoning expert at all.
Really, more like limited.
Yeah. Can tell you.
Okay. Yes. I like you guys have
Yeah. There's so much to do. So I mean, Dr.
So I told Ellen.
Yes,
Like
she's a professor. Now,
Really, like, yeah, it's gonna look at some of this.
in the home, and so. Yeah. I think there's opportunity.
I don't know, maybe just.
Right now, because we thought we were gonna pair like.
Yes, he said 2-on-1, and they kind of laid out the whole list.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm doing them. I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, again, I think you get the gist of it.
Questions?
Taking notes.
I mean, I'll try to,
So I guess.
here,
Ideas.
I'm not sure the best way to sort of prepare people or really what kind of projects that is most interesting. So it would be great to just, you send me, like, I think I'm really good. Anything that related to what you heard here. And we'll just start to figure it out, see how many clients we get. And I need to know again how many cars, because that really is part of the decision.
So.
We have many more people who would like to be your clients than we have vehicles to get you around. Well, right now, because when I asked how many people had cars, it was almost more or less half, not quite, maybe a third. So what my thought was to actually pair people so that there's two people, one driver maybe can take 4 people, drops off 2 people at one house, goes to another house and with 2. And it might be that if it's 2 architects at the same house, one's working in a duplex, one's working in an ADA. And then, or it could be that one person is working more at the scale of the neighborhood. If there's a bunch of 80, where what all variety of ADUs, what would that look like? So there's difference, but they might, it's still that you can really talk to one person and get a sense of one client in their neighborhood and what those need. But you know, we have lots of people with different backgrounds. Rohan's an aerospace engineer. So I'm putting you as transportation. You're in transportation. So he's a civil engineer. So maybe you guys would want to talk. Do some encouragement discussion about the mobility issues. You know, how to get around in a neighborhood. Frankly, you have to drive everywhere to get around. What kind of mobility issues does that mean? Putting in, or is it we need more things more walkable, or is it actually we need more? So lots of different questions. Yeah. But in visualizations, I don't really expect you. It might be that if you really do get on something really to do inside, and when you see you get more architectural, it's like this. I'm not. It's not a studio, so kind of. I'm hoping you guys let me know what you like. So I that absolutely.
Yeah. It really
Obviously, there's some. So that's needed. You're not really that That's why you don't. Good, thank you.
Yeah. So, I did not look like it's like. This is.
Hello, we're back. All right, so now the second half, we're going to have 3 presentations, and again, we'll have Q&A at the end of all 3. And the first one, I am delighted to introduce Rick Porter, 3rd generation developer in DeKalb County, and also the director of the Master Real Estate Program here at Georgia Tech.
Thank you, Ellen. You know, when Ellen asked me about this, and of course I know Commissioner Terry, the activities. I didn't quite put together that this was going to be a bit personal. I am a developer, and I have grown up in the development business. I've lived my entire life in DeKalb County. I've seen several zoning. I've worked in stuff. Actually, 4 generations of my family have lived in DeKalb County. Still do. My son just bought a house, 5th generation. So I want to, on the one hand, talk about these products. I want to show you some of these products. I've done a lot of things on the business side, not just what I will talk about tonight. But I found many years ago, 25, 30 years ago, that if in fact we are going to change, we have got to innovate in the products that we produce. We've had a lot of policy that is directed toward change. So I'll leave one word with you to begin with. We have to go where we can innovate. Some of the things that I'll show you aren't in DeKalb County. Some are. But I decided as a part of my business that I would follow innovation and where I could do that. That often meant building relationships. It often meant seeking policy that would allow. And that, in fact, has happened, and many of these products are produced. And that's what I want to show you and relate to tonight. The second component I want to leave you with is as important as our conversation about zoning is. There is an entire administrative level underneath zoning in every municipality. If zoning cannot be efficiently administered, it doesn't take us anywhere. And so I'm here to advocate for a development regulation discussion, specifically in DeKalb County, because as a developer and one that has often argued against certain policies, today DeKalb County has probably got one of the most progressive zoning ordinances throughout the region. DeKalb County has probably got the least progressive administrative process to deliver that zoning. And so let's look at some products. We talked about a lot of this, but these are the things as to why we can't stay. And we want to tie together our conversation about actual products to how that helps us stay. First group of speakers did a great job with that from the standpoint of support and goodness. So we have a lot of this in DeKalb County. You just heard 65%. DeKalb County was a first wave suburban community coming out of the urban areas in the 50s to 60s. Some of the best housing stock, I would suggest to you, not just because our family was there, some of the best housing stock, not just in this region, but maybe in the country, is in the first wave suburban development around DeKalb County. We've added some things over time that on the surface look about the same. However, these are not the same. What you just saw that was put in place with the older DeKalb house is in fact a duplex. We've had the opportunity just a couple of times, and this was one of them 20 years ago. We put a community together that we mixed duplexes. We couldn't call them duplexes. This municipality did not allow duplexes. We couldn't call them that. These are garden townhomes. We proposed to them
They did not.
that we would mix garden townhomes with single-family detached houses. When financial institutions said it couldn't be done, communities said it couldn't be done, neighborhoods, they listened and they agreed. And we delivered this. And I would suggest to you that you could drive through there today and you wouldn't notice the difference. We did take certain design considerations. As you notice, there's a second door here, the front door over here. So when you saw those first houses, you didn't think they were duplexes. They looked just like single family houses. So we do take some care to do that. 25 years ago, we did this cottage court. Cottage courts have a place. They look, they feel, and we can see them. They only work in certain places. And so, relating again to what we have the ability, as Davis said earlier, to do certain things in our DeKalb ordinance. But they will not all look like this because they don't work exactly this way. This is the administration of policy. We've got to have flexibility to do it. I'm proud that we did this in the place that we did it. It was very difficult, but it's not always going to look just like this. But this product's out there. And this is what, again, I want to deliver and to take away. I don't need a t-shirt. I'm not here to win a t-shirt, put a halo over us. But I found that if we could go and innovate, and once we put things on the ground, the fear begins to go away because it's just not all that much different. This is where the momentum will take us. And it's still there throughout the region, and it's there in DeKalb County. 24-foot wide streets. Davis mentioned earlier, 35-foot setbacks. Mandated 2-car garages. Mandated 1,400 to 1,600 square feet, sometimes bigger. Mandated sod on all of this land in these big yards. All by regulation. All by regulation. But we can turn the tide on that. We had an opportunity to participate, and this one again is not simple. This is a subsidized senior housing development. This is a LIHTC, a low-income housing tax credit development. We were asked to come in to look at putting, they didn't know what way they were going to call them at the time, cottages along with, to give options to that middle building is the regular 4-story seniors multifamily building. This municipality did not allow duplexes. This municipality did not allow any detached units below 1,200 square feet. So we began to work with them and talk to them about how might we go about it. We worked on floor plans, 750 square foot, 1-bedroom plans, duplexes, knowing they didn't allow them. Knowing they had concerns about architecture, we worked with streetscapes. So we had a single unit, a duplex, a single unit, a duplex, a duplex. So you see, and again, we called these, they let us call these duplexes. But you see that these can be blended in. We agreed that they would be slab on grade, stick built homes. We took that moniker. They're not cottages anymore. They're homes. We built the homes just like we would build any home. We had some that were a little wider and not so deep to accommodate. We had these that faced out because we had an agreement with them. Anything that faced out, they wanted to look like a single family house. But that particular unit is not, in fact, it's a duplex. So you notice the porch, you notice the second door here. But we did take certain steps, and we couldn't do everything here. We couldn't get fee simple subdivision. There was nothing, there was no path here to try to, we talked about it. These are rental, and that's okay, they wanted to be rental. But we talked about going to that step, but we couldn't. But still what we did was look ahead. So we separated these 10 feet. Normal fire separation. So one day that might can happen. That's the end of it. Go where you can innovate. Innovate and look ahead. We might not can do everything that we want to do. A little bit more asphalt here than some would like. I won't get off on policy, but it's an interesting sidebar to this particular deal. Most of the parking was not driven by local ordinance. It was driven by the Department of Community Affairs and requirements of light tech. So there's several layers of policy. And that's my only caution about, by all means, and I'm here to advocate for zoning. We can't just change zoning and assume that everything will fall in place. There's a lot of work outside of that. But you notice a little different streets. It's still under construction, it's not all done, and I understand it's a little rough. But you see that we can locate and put houses in a lot of different directions to make them fit, because ultimately what happened here? Here's the normal subdivision. The two red lines here are the same street footage, 450 some odd feet. And over here on 2.8 acres, looking like this, we could get 10 living units. The other one on 1.4 acres, we have 19 living units. That's the streetscape that you just saw with cottages and duplexes. So the products can be done, and the more we get them on the street, the better they can be. Here's what we have in many ways in DeKalb County. This is a 1960s era subdivision in DeKalb County. Every lot won't look this way. But you heard about separating lots and so forth. Even with today's setbacks, this is that duplex unit sitting within the building setbacks of an existing DeKalb County lot. It's a corner lot. Every lot's not this way. This is a 1960s era subdivision. Early on in zoning, there was a concept called exemption plats. Still exists in some rural areas. Exemption plats, if Farmer Brown had a big parcel of land and he wanted to give a parcel of land to his son, it was an administrative simple process. Lots in DeKalb County can be subdivided with an exemption plat, administrative process. And additional homes can be done on those separated lots. If you started to do that today, it wouldn't be an exemption plat. It doesn't have to be as difficult as we have made it. 50s era ranches, another ranch, about the same width. We can always work with roof pitches if we need to, but there's 2 units. So that corner lot goes from 1 unit to 3 units through an administrative process. Davis mentioned utilities. There's some details here. This is where the efficiency of the administration has got to come into play. Because if we zone for it and we still have 3, 4, and 5 months to get something permitted, it won't get done. These things that we've done over the years, and this has been over many years. And again, I'm not here to advocate just what we have done, but it is too complicated to accomplish some of the things, even beyond zoning, to actually get permission. You've lived in this home for many years on a large lot in DeKalb County. You've got plenty of land for this new 1-bedroom. And you've heard all the various options that Bonnie put out there. The young folks, you sell the house, you keep the house, you rent the house, you build you a new place to live. You have the no-step entry then. You have all the pieces that you need. a lot of options in there that are all policy. All policy is a decision. Can you rent it? Can you not? Fits right there next to the house, streetscape, all is the same. Now let's look inspirationally and beyond. This is DeKalb County. DeKalb County passed a new zoning ordinance about 10 years ago. There were some development by right in that zoning. And one of those was live work. It was added. This is a remnant parcel of property. We developed a live work there. First one might have been the only one done under that ordinance. I'm not sure. First one done. It was an administrative party, I will tell you. If you look at the red line, this is in a location. That red line is 1,500 feet. There are 6 restaurants, a drugstore, a market, 3 cleaners, a vet, car repair place, 3 personal salons, a workout facility, an eye doctor, all in that stretch, all within 1,500 feet. Parcel wouldn't work for everybody. I understand that. Parcel would not work for every busy road. This was developed as a live work. What I'm about to talk to you about is illegal. It's not being done. But I want to show you how we can think ahead with design. So we have a building. This is the office component. Notice for you architects, the step back roof planes when we get closer to the road. We've created separate entrance here just for office and residential. The building itself is on 3 levels with a half level. You can't read it, and we're going to be really quick. This is the office space, a half level below the main level of the house. But here's what I really want to close with quickly. This space has got 4 separate areas designed into it. We have a lower level here. There is a garage there that's got space here and space here. That's living space. We have the main level of the house that has got living space. We have the upstairs of the house, living space. All are actually designed with some small area for living, sitting, morning kitchens and kitchenettes. And we have a 4th space that now is commercial with some down under that. This, my friend, is a quadplex. It has got every piece to it that's needed, including a core area with an elevator. It is one of those spaces that, again, any lifestyle we can pick any lifestyle. An entrepreneurial couple could move into this space and run their business. As they grew their family, they would have an upstairs bedroom for small children. As the children got older, they would have downstairs bedrooms. As they got teenagers, they would have a lower level. As then they got older and closed their business, they could rent out the commercial space if they wanted that. It could be 4 living spaces. As they got older, they could retreat to the upstairs and rent out the main level. As they needed help, they can use the bottom level as an apartment. Every combination that you can come up with can happen in that space. Was it designed with that in mind? It was. Is it used that way? No, it can't be. But we have to innovate and look further ahead so that when things change, it can be. And I'll leave you with a simple black line draw. This isn't approved yet. This is the only thing I'm showing you that hadn't been built. It is in discussion for a personal accessory dwelling. Modest 3-bedroom, 1,300 square foot house. purely a 3-bedroom if that's what you want. Think about the options of aging in place. This room has its own entrance. It's got its own bathroom. It's got a small space for a kitchenette. Serves just like a bedroom. Maybe you don't need that space. You move into this space, you rent it out. Maybe you turn in, we all might be single one day, didn't intend to. Maybe we live here and rent out the rest of it. Concept of a personal accessory dwelling. By policy, it can't happen. Whether it's a family definition, whether it's a rental issue, not complicated, simple solution to that. So some things that could actually happen. And I want to again leave, innovate where you can, look ahead, maybe design, especially you designers, design for what it could be, not just what it is today.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. And zooming in from Texas, I am delighted to bring Monte Anderson up. And Monte, just tell me next for each time you want me to advance the slides. There's a little bit of an introduction to Monte. You can read on the slide, but Monte, do you want to I will give us my introduction. So the last two speakers are not local. We had to have some fresh blood, some new ideas to put on the table. And so I've been a big fan of both Monte Anderson and Steve Luoni, who are going to speak next. Hi, Monte, join us.
Hey, Ellen, glad to be here today. Been listening to you all, very informative. So I'm Monte Anderson from Dallas, Texas, and I'm in southern Dallas, which is the have-not side of the city. So I've always had to I've grown up here my whole life, been in business here now for 35 years, doing small scale. I call it small scale, but more today it's medium scale development. So I'm like a community development corporation for profit, with the philosophy of making money is the most important thing we do, but doing good is equal. And so in addition to the real estate development world, I'm with Neighborhood Evolution, my other company, which we teach cities and economic development organizations all around the country and in Canada how to create ecosystems for small developers to do it yourself in these areas. So I've done all kinds of things. I've done hotels, theaters, old warehouses and strip centers. In fact, right here where I'm at today is a strip center. We're building 12 townhomes in the parking lot as we speak in partnership with Habitat. And right behind this wall behind me is 5 little apartment units. And we're not going to look at those today, but we're going to look at a couple of things that Ellen has asked me to talk about next. So this is the first project I'm going to show you is if you can see Dallas in the top and down where that purple box is, it's one of the poorest areas in all of Dallas, 90% poverty, 75% unemployment, and the neighborhood is very bad. And so my charge was how to get homeless people out of shelters and into housing, into their own room. Next. So they asked me to figure out how that people could rent rooms for like $250. And so the roommate house and my way of doing the roommate house was born. And in fact, in the roommate house, I don't think we share very good. So I didn't want to do co-living. It just didn't work, but I'm having to deal with a single family lot. So as you can see here, it's an existing house that had 2 bedrooms, a little shotgun house and a living room and a kitchen. And so basically what I did was add 2 ADUs onto the back. And with these, I had the secret doors, the connecting doors, and the limited kitchen, the wet bar kitchen, which made them legal. And it passed all the muster with the city. And they looked at it really close and said, well, you can't do this. You got multifamily in a single family neighborhood. And I said, well, why not? It's really a 4-bedroom house with 3 baths. And we got 2 roommates, which you say we can have up to 4 roommates, non-related legally. And that's what we did here. And so it had very little subsidy. And go next. And so what I think the key to affordability is this. Number 1 is ownership. Number 2 is spending a little bit more. So in this case here, at the time back in 2017, when we did this, instead of spending, they were going to spend $25,000. This community development corporation that owned this property, they were going to spend $25,000 to fix up this house and put a couple of 3 different 4 people into the unit, into the house. And I said, that's not going to work good. So if you'll spend a little more money, which was $110 a square foot, which today would be, $250 a square foot, of course. And back then, though, it was a lot of money for this little house, and we could get 2% interest, 30-year amortization. And so we actually put an owner in here. We put somebody from the neighborhood that had been recently, they had been clean and sober, and they were involved with this community, Bonton Farms, this community development corporation. And so they were going to own the property at 2% interest. With taxes and insurance, you can see it would cost $927 a month. And then you got the 2 little roommates at $250 each. And so a young man that had never owned a house and never thought he ever would is going to be able to own a house for $427 a month. Now, you can't take somebody that's never owned anything and put them into a piece of real estate without, coaching and teaching them. So part of the key to this was to continue coaching next. So you can see in the floor plan here that you can see the 2 bedrooms and the kitchen and the living room and the bath of the main house. And then a laundry room was added on. And then you can see the 2 secret doors behind the closet. I don't know if my pointer, can you see my pointer?
No, but I
Okay.
think
But you
we
can
try
see
again.
you can
Try
see
again.
you can see the 2 secret doors that are locking doors. These
So,
are
all right,
locking doors.
walk-in door here and a
Yeah.
walk-in door here, the bottom,
well,
yeah.
Yeah, the walking doors are on the top. The front porch is.
Okay, yeah, and the top
You can
ones,
see
yeah.
that, and then so you can see the 2 locking doors. They always stay locked. They never get open. So, and then in each of the units looks like a little hotel room. They've
Yeah.
got their own bathrooms and they've got their own kitchenettes, like an efficiency. And they go out the back door, which is right there by the kitchenette, and they can go into the laundry room once a week. They got timed areas they can go in and use the laundry. So they've got their own laundry there. And there you go, $250 a month. You've got an ex alcoholic, drug addict who's got his life straight, owning a house, who's now mentoring and coaching people himself. He's being mentored and coached and mentoring and coaching others that are coming out of shelters. And by the way, the CPS people, people that have lost their kids cannot see their kids again when they live in multi-housing. They have to live in a space by themselves. And this qualified for that. So it did all kinds of good social things. So go to the next slide. So you can see the original house to the left on the bottom right-hand photo. And all we did was take the ridge of the house and extend it out. And you can see the 2 roommate units with hotel type air conditioning units. I wouldn't have done that. I would have put mini splits in, but those work fine. Everybody's got their own controls. Then you can see the back entrance for the laundry. And there you go. You've got a little small, community there. You've hacked the code. And go to the next slide. And you can see we didn't just put lipstick on the pig here. We actually did a good job because my thoughts were you're never going to change somebody's life in such a poor area if you just keep giving them, crappy places to live. And so again, I go back to the key to affordability is ownership. You own this and you got a little bit of income, from your renters. You're teaching wealth building. There's so many benefits to this. It's not just about housing. See, I have this philosophy that, affordable housing is not our problem. It's a symptom of the problem. The problem we don't make enough money. Next. Now, this is a Greenleaf Lane. This is a little bit different. This is a first ring suburb that was built in the 70s, when White Flight built it and White Flight, passed it on to the next generations now in the 2000s. And so we've got all these houses here, really nice houses that have been abandoned and not abandoned, but they were built by mom and dad and 2.6 kids. The 2.6 kids grew up and went away. Dad died, and mom's now in this big house on an acre of land or a half an acre with a pool and all this stuff. Next slide. So this is what it looks like. You can see the pool's green. You got a big old site, big acre of land here. And it's like, what do you do with this thing? How do you densify it? I mean, this thing's got to continue to deteriorate. Next slide. Hadn't been, trimmed. The trees hadn't. It looks ugly. It's, it is one story, which made it good. Is part of the thing I was looking for when I began to experiment with this. Next slide. This is what it looked like. This is what mom was left with as she deteriorated and died. She didn't die in the house, but she got very close. Next slide. So I began to work. I always work from the numbers. I always begin with the end in mind. I'm always working with the numbers you saw in the other one. And this one here, I call it the suburban house hack, baby boomer aging in place. This was back in 21. So I'm talking about the same thing you're talking about. Baby boomer aging in place, roommate suites, luxury version. Now, why is it a luxury version? It's got a pool, right? So there's the luxury version. So you got the cost of the property, the financing. If you didn't own it, you would have this financing. If you owned it, and you were converting it, you were a baby boomer aging in place like I am, then you wouldn't have you wouldn't have as much financing. And then how much we could get from each room and the expenses over, on the side. And basically you got a luxury house here for about $1,800 a month. If you had to buy it, if you owned it, it would be zero. You would own it for zero. You would get a loan. You'd have to have a loan, if you didn't have the money to do the improvements, but you would have zero payment if you didn't have debt on the house. Next slide. So we start with an as-built floor plan, and I always tell small developers that I coach all over, you got to start with this as-built floor plan. And you can see the kitchen and living and dining room. Note these areas, and the den, and right off of the den, that's a garage that was falling in. And then you got the master bedroom over to the left, and then you got the 2 kids' bedroom with the Jack and Jill bathroom down at the bottom. Now just take a snapshot in your mind of this floor plan. And now go to the next slide. So now we've divided this up into 4 units, and don't pay any attention to those red dots yet. But if you look at number 1, you'll see its own door coming in from the outside. Now this is another house hack, okay? In this city that I'm in, Duncanville, Texas here, you can't do single family. I mean, you can't do multifamily in this neighborhood. It's totally illegal. But you can have up to 4 roommates that are non-related in your property. So unit 1, number 1's got 600 square feet with the wet bar. You see it right by the front door and its own bathroom. And if you look right outside of unit number 1, there's a common area washer and dryer. You get into that from the outside. And number 2, we call that the shepherd's unit. And that's where I'm living today because I'm doing this as an experiment to see how it works. And in that unit, you've got a full kitchen, which was the old kitchen. I've got my own laundry, baby boomer aging in place. That's me. I'm still in 1,100 square feet. Believe me, I don't even need that much. I had a hotel before. I lived in 300 square feet for like 6 or 7 years, and I learned how to live small, and I loved it. And so you see the unit there, you're in the control seat there, and then you've got the unit 4 with the master bedroom, and you can see the door's been cut in to come in from the outside. And then unit 3, you can see its own door from the outside. And unit 3, the kids' bedroom, what used to be 2 kids' bedroom, had a living room and a bedroom and a little wet bar. And then now we can pay attention to the secret doors. So the locking doors. Each one of those locking doors that makes this legal. Now, if I had full kitchens in each unit, that would be illegal. I can't have a stove, but I can have a wet bar. I can have an air fryer. I can have a microwave. They've got their own restrooms. They got a place to wash their clothes outside. You've got all those things. You got all those amenities there. And so now go to the next slide. So look at the door. There's a cabinet door right next to the 3 lights hanging down. That cabinet door, look at that. And if you open that door, you see that to the left. So that's each of these. So you've got a little closet door. So the property can flex over time. You can open that back up. So you could add two of these units together. You could flex it back into a big single family house, but behind those doors and that space between those doors with a really heavy door, and that space between the doors really helps with sound. And so this was what makes it legal. And not too long ago, the New York Times came through here and did an article on it. If you want to look it up, you can. And they called it really one of the ways of creating affordable housing. And so this works really good. And go to the next slide. Just a couple of shots of what it looked like in the front. We stripped it down and put a little, metal on the front to make it look a little more modern. Didn't paint the brick. We just tried to make it look a little bit better. That's not a lot of expense right there. That's not a lot. Next slide. That's the living room. We took the sheetrock off the joist up top and put the sheetrock on top to make it look good and modernize the next slide. Go to the next slide. Put the fireplace in the bedroom. The shepherd's suite, that's my bed, is open like a flat. So it's all open in there. So you go in this suburban house out there and it looks like you're in a flat in a downtown somewhere in an urban, because I'm really more of an urban. I want to live urban. I seem to get stuck in the suburban areas all the time because I'm doing these kind of things. But I wanted it feels urban when I'm in there. And by the way, I couldn't live out here. I'm single. I couldn't live out here by myself. I would lose my mind. But I really don't want to live with anybody. I've been divorced 3 times, so I obviously got a problem. I'm codependent, but I can't live with the people I'm married to. So I want to have people around, but I don't want them in my house. See, we don't share very good, right? Yeah, I'm a clean freak. And so, if you don't clean up after yourself, then it's a problem. And you've lived with family members you couldn't get along with or had a roommate, right? Those are they get kind of funny. But next slide. Then there's the pool house. We built a house. We did spend a little money building this little pool house out back, and it kind of framed in the pool. The pool's gigantic. It's one of them built in the 70s. I swear you could have the YMCA out here. It's that big, but we just repaired it and put it back together. But it's really beautiful. The pool makes the place in the back, and then having the acre of land there with the driveway in the very first photo going all the way back, we can park 7 cars off the street. So if I had all these cars parked on the street with these roommates, my neighbors are going to get upset and start calling on me. But one of the things that I do, I think about respecting the neighbors, and getting those cars off the street, because I don't want them calling on me. I want them to think of me as a good neighbor. In fact, my house is the best looking house, the cleanest one on the whole street. Next slide. There's the inside of the pool house. It's a concrete polished floor with open ceilings. There's a little picture of a wet bar. You get a little skinny refrigerator it really will make ice. So you can really live here. I have 4 units here, and they're all women. All single women live with me. I'm the only guy. And they range from 20 years old to 70 years old. And, they're black and white. We mix. It's unbelievable. We don't really hang out together, but we see each other and we take care of each other. And if we need something, if I needed something at the pharmacy, or, I get sick or needed some soup, or, we watch out for each other. If somebody doesn't come home at night, I worry, or they worry, so it's kind of like you've got people looking out for you, but they're not telling you what you can watch on TV.
I can see this as the Golden Girls plus Monte. You got it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Ellen, you remember how the Golden Girls were always in an argument with each other, they were always arguing. In this case, you don't do that here. So anyway, it's really fun, and I'm really enjoying living here now, and I don't really want to move now. So, but anyway, that's one. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll so the next slide is again, it's a suburban and accessory commercial unit, and this is an experiment. The city I live in will never let me do this. They're never going to let me do it. So I'm throwing it out there now. Maybe the next generation will let me. But you can see over to the right, you can see the city, and then you can see a street right below the purple there is called Big Stone Gap. That's next slide. Looks like this. It's a 4-lane street. Okay. It's a one of those interior thoroughfares. And the houses that these are nice houses. They were good houses at one point and they've deteriorated, but they're still good. You see these houses here? Nobody wants to live on the corner of a street people are going 60 miles an hour down. So what do we do with these? And so my thoughts here was we turn the garages. You can see one of them's got the driveway coming off of the Big Stone Gap. The others have a driveway you can see right down the middle. They have a rear entry garage. You can see the driveways going into the 2-car garage in the back. So go to the next slide. So in this case here, we downsized the street, and the city is downsizing streets here. So I'm trying to convince them to put parallel parking on the street with just paint right now. Very low cost. You can see the paint. Now we turn the garages into a commercial unit. So the garages, and you can see, I don't have that great of a drawing because it hadn't been done yet. You can see the sidewalk walking up to a little storefront in each of those garages. So now you can have, you have the piano teacher, you can have an insurance office, you can have, real estate office, you could graphic designers, you could cut hair, and you can still park in your driveway. You see down the alley, you still got enough room to park 2 cars there in your driveway. The funny thing about garages, I hate garages. I don't know about y'all, but I hate them because most everybody just stores things. It's just a hoarder's, it's just for hoarding. And, they store things in them. They don't use the garages anyway. So here you got extra income. And now on top of this, you can do the roommate house inside the house. So you may not do 4 units like I did on an acre, but you might just have 1, like the gentleman before me that spoke about having the 1 unit. And then the really interesting thing about the big roommate house is my mother just passed away in her 80s, and she had dementia in her older years. And I promised not to ever put her in a home, a nursing home. And if I did, it was, it's what, $7,000, $10,000 a month. I don't know. It's a lot of money. We didn't do it. But you really could have your family living together, but not drive you crazy. Because if you've ever been around, a dementia, a parent or an elderly person and stuff, they can really drive you crazy and make everybody mean and nasty. And so this way they could live next door. You could lock her in at night. You could really survive financially. You would really survive too financially, and take care of each other. And my sister, who's getting up there now, could live there too. And, your whole family could live in a situation like this. My granddaughter is one of my roommates in my house right now. My granddaughter, who started in the real estate business with me, is living there. So anyway, I would say that a couple of things that I would talk about in zoning, if this was really allowed, some of this stuff was allowed, you got to deal with parking off street so you don't destroy the neighborhood. You got to have the house to be flexible. I would think in my neighborhood, if they're not owner occupants and you turn this into a real estate deal, and you get a bunch of slumlords coming in, it'll probably destroy the neighborhood. So what I would say to the city here where we're at is let owner occupants do this. And if the owner occupant dies, the baby boomer dies, the house can flex back to a single family house again. So you lose your permit, if you're not an owner occupant. And so that would be, you could be able to flex and go back to single family if that happened. And in this case here, city council and building department, all of them had come and looked at this. They saw the article come out in the New York Times and stuff like that. And they're thinking, what are you doing over here? And they all came out and looked at it. They love it. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to write policy to do it, Ellen. They can't figure this out. We're really behind the times here. But anyway, they love my house. They just don't know how to make it work for other people. And being the local guy here with cutting edge work that I do, you get no respect here. So I say this, and I'll close with this. One day when I die, they're gonna say, yeah, he did good in all these other cities and helped all these people. In his own town, he failed. That's what I would say. Anyway, that's not really true, but I feel like that. So thank you for having me here today. And I thank you again.
Thank you. Monty, I just hope you just feel a whole lot of love. I'm sorry you're not here with us in person, but really you are doing such really amazing stuff. It's great ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, I'm now going to move to Steve Luoni. Steve is a professor at University of Arkansas, where he runs the University of Arkansas Community Design Center. And his students and his center put together a book recently called Houses for Aging Socially. And Steve, I'll let you take it from there.
Thanks, Ellen. And thank you for having me. This is a great forum on housing and aging. And we wrote a book on that 8 years ago. And it was really about connecting housing with the challenges of aging in terms of social precarity, loneliness, affordability, and care deficit. And it's the care deficit that we really wrote about. The background on this, the book was done through a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts. It was for a small community in Freeman, South Dakota. And what's happening in South Dakota is that all the family farms are being lost. So folks are retiring. Remember, the average age of a farmer in America is 58. So folks are retiring from farms, moving to cities where there are services, and they're only moving to a few select cities that have healthcare services. So we're going to have a situation where 80% of towns in South Dakota will become ghost towns. And so we did this thought leadership piece on housing and aging. And I won't go over all the logics behind the care because it's in the book. But I only have time really just to show you the kind of visualizations that we went through and how we thought about connecting housing with aging. A couple statistics, though, you should keep in mind. 50% of all seniors that are in assisted living, which as Monte just suggested, is average price is around $6,000 a month. In expensive real estate markets, it's around $10,000 to $20,000 a month. So it's not really an available option ongoing for most people. But 50% of seniors that are put in assisted living do not suffer from any kind of medical deficit. They suffer from a social deficit. Their housing doesn't work for them. They don't have family members to care for them. And, the community and lack of friends or network is not there to support them. So that's why they're in assisted living. So we know that that's not an option ongoing. So we thought about housing in terms of, how can one develop purpose? What are new notions of work after employment? How do we foster sharing economies? And how do we overcome care deficits? And it's really going back to the informal neighborhood of the late 19th and early 20th century, when American cities and American neighborhoods had mixed uses. They had real fluidity in housing. And there's a great, probably the best article I've ever seen on housing that especially students should take a look at, by R.A.L. Adberg-Reiger. It's called When America's Basic Housing Unit Was a Bed, Not a House. And what she's studying, and she does it graphically. She's an artist and tells the history of it through graphics. But she goes over the way that the early American city, 20th century cities, solved for housing. It did it through SROs, or single resident occupancy, residential hotels, boarding houses, congregate housing. And so even the lowest income persons actually had available houses up until, about the 1930s, 1940s. This is also when America was moving around a lot. So a lot of what we're visualizing is going back to that kind of fluidity, that informality, keeping in mind that most of what I'm going to show you is not really legal right now. So to start off the visualization, we said there are three superadded components in American neighborhoods: the porch, the yard, or what we're calling a patio mat, and the garage are usually superadded to the house. What would happen if we took those superadded elements, flipped the script, and started with those components as infrastructure? So we built a hyper porch, a porch that's a block long. Or we start with the garage, which could be, as has been suggested, a kind of mixed use component. It becomes a kind of commercial component, an informal commercial component that makes the house into live work. So we start with those things and then build the housing around that. And our client wanted us to think this through using single family houses. I'm agnostic on what the housing type is. So just understand that we use single family housing to show this. Next. And as I said, it's really about going from a superadded component to a place to an infrastructure. And they're in the middle column of images, you could see what happens when the porch is extensive, when the garage and a patio are converted into other uses. So there's a lot of untapped potential in these things to really start making small villages. Next. And there's another way to read the book besides just looking at garage, patio mat, and porch. We also came up with 21 concepts on principles toward a new cooperation, how seniors can, through the built environment, start to construct sharing economies. So there's a couple ways you can read the book, but the most important thing, I think, that the book offers, particularly for students and professionals looking at housing, is that we're thinking in terms of pattern rather than form. So I'm not really too concerned about the form of the house. I'm concerned about the relationships. And if you think about urbanism, if it goes back to what Gordon Colin in The Concise Townscape was saying, urbanism is really about the art of relationships. It's rather different from architecture. Also, Jan Gehl is a guiding theorist and urbanist who says, first life, then space, then buildings. The other way around never works. And throughout the book, you can see that we begin with the activity. We begin with the programming. Then we draw the space around it. Then we get to the form. And so as architects, we're not overly consumed with the form of the house or even the identity of the house. What we always do, though, is uphold the autonomy of the household. So this is not co-living. So we're looking at other things beyond the household that we can share. Next. So we start with the porch as social infrastructure. We ask, what would it mean if we started with a porch that was a block long? And in looking at these patterns, we have different unit types that touch the porch, set back from the porch. Next. We look at an in-house in which we in unit in which we can phase and create semi-public, public, private, semi-private spaces. We can build screen porches. We can have components of the porch that create an aggregation of 3 or 4 units that share part of the porch. So the porch is never passive. It's part of a shaper of a larger community. Next. And we liken the porch to a ship's deck, where it can host, and this is a 15-foot wide porch, it can host a variety of uses and activities, and still preserve privacy because you can build screen porches. There's different ways that the house can interface with the porch, again, either through touching or setting back. You can build mixed uses. You can see in the elevations the red and the building with the sloped roof, the shed roof, is actually small live work, small shops. You can even build garages into it. So there's a real capacity for the porch to start to aggregate house, small shops. You can even go higher. You can put 3, 4, 5-story units that plug into this. So the porch as a kind of component, as an urban component, is really flexible in what you can do with it. Next. And then we look at different house types. Again, as I say, you can couple with the porch. You can do a patio extension. You can literally interface with the porch where you move out from the house into the porch. Next. And again, we're not too concerned with the look of the unit itself, but rather with the possibilities in aggregation and the different relationships when you begin with the porch rather than the unit. Next. In the patio mat, really, it's all about room making. It's in the tradition of the map building, otherwise known as a carpet building, and it's simply making rooms at an urban scale. And what we do is the home frontage or the porch is detached from the house that creates a patio or small yard in between, which becomes, I think, a more meaningful logic in making space and making activities. So you have the frontage, you have the patio, and the house itself. And in the street as well, we have shared streets where the street is thought of as a series of rooms. So the whole complex is just a series of multi-scaled rooms that move from public to private with some flexibility. And that's the other thing I want to recommend is that we think in terms of succession. And so these rooms and everything I'm showing you is not fixed. There's the ability to change things over the life. For instance, next, in some of these frontage conditions, to close them in. Many porches often get closed in. And so the frontage systems have a real capacity to entertain, hobbyist space, retail space, any kind of non-retail social gathering or kind of social connection that you want to make. You can have arboretums, workshops, studios, play courts, greenhouses. And so you can program an entire neighborhood through the frontage. Next. And again, as I said, even the streets themselves are thought of as rooms. And so it's really just a kind of carpet of rooms. And that's pretty important for aging because, and one of the principles that we talk about is that a bedroom, in case someone is bedridden, you can always see people, you can always see life, keeping in mind that the greatest joy of people is to see other people. And so we're really thinking about it from an aging point of view. How do we build the social vitality that we once saw in informal neighborhoods back into a place while keeping household autonomy? Next. And again, showing you the diagrams of how these different rooms can work. Even the back patio has a certain continuum with the house and with the front, and these can be arranged in different ways. Next. We always say, look, create a room between the porch and the house and fill with a garden, and let the house just be one room thick so that you can get light in from at least two sides. So again, there's not the house and the urban divide. Everything's a continuum, but you can privatize things as you wish and make them even more public so it can go both ways. Next. And then just looking at this from the elevation, it's really important. We always have staff and students conceptualize the elevation. The elevation's the index of use. Elevations are not something that you do in the end of a project. Sometimes the project is programmed from the elevation because that's what's going to give you the urbanism. So I would think in terms of pattern language, not just through the plan, but also through the elevations and how the elevations give rise to succession, to growth, to evolution and change. Next. And then the garage, ended with the last component, the garage bar. Sometimes beginning with the garage is a spatial framework. Understanding that the garage can be a lot of different things. It could be a cafe, it could be a shop, it could be hobby space, it can be owned by the HOA, so that it can do a collection of things. So there's if you begin with the garage, and there are different ways that you can do it, as you'll see here. The garage becomes the purveyor of urbanism. Next. I won't get into it, but what we do when we come up with these relationships and patterns is name them. So we have a garage patio, a car lodge, a storefront garage, and a garage porch sandwich, in which give rise to a number of activities and create different types of street frontages. And keep in mind that the garage is the most uncertain component in housing, because the future mobility suggests that we may not be using, or at least owning, cars as much as we have in the past and do now. So the garage is probably that component of housing that will be open to other uses. So it really does need to be designed as swing space. Next. And then, we say in one of the principles, add an extra 10 feet to the garage, because someday it could be something different, pop up streetscape and commercial space. And again, the look of the house is not what's important. Next. You start with the garage at ground level. Some people can still use the garage as parking, others for different community spaces, for shop space, for retail. It actually encourages hobbyism and the continuation of work. We even put a greenhouse, a shared greenhouse at the end. Next. Next. And I think it's important to do these kind of social activity diagrams. If housing for aging and aging in place is really a programming problem, not so much a problem, but programming is a way to problem solve and to think of the full range of purpose and fit and possibilities and sharing economies. So again, it's not driven by form, but it's driven by programming. Next. And here's where the house fits in between a double-sided garage. On one side, on the top side, folks can pull in patios and driveways. And then on the greensward side, you have shops and workshops and hobby space, meeting rooms that tap into the garage space. And it could be all meeting rooms or all workspace at some point if cars aren't needed. But here you have a really, I think, fantastic frontage solution that allows the house and the household to really start to form a collective. So it's much more radical thinking than the single family home and property, but it derives out of single family thinking and really taking the syntax apart and repurposing it. Next. And so I just end on that, this notion that if we design for succession and evolution and growth, and again, none of this stuff is legal, but I think neither was Uber or Airbnb. So I think we're still seeing logics where from informality, we can force codes and regulations to change because the market has its way. And I think given the level of structural precarity, we're going to start seeing these things happen. We already are in some places. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Okay. All right. We've got time for some questions. Got time for there's Steve. Monty, if you want to turn your video on. Davis, turn yours on.
What's Steve's last name?
Luoni,
Okay.
Luoni. And so, yeah, we've kind of gone from, I know Nick's got a question, great. We've gone from like sort of small things, small changes to kind of trying to blow your mind.
Yes, he did.
And so part of, I do want to just open it up to questions, but I also just want to get reactions, show of hands. How many people think like the projects that Steve just showed? Would you want to live there?
Absolutely,
Yes.
yes.
Yes, all right, we're seeing a lot of yeses. How many of you would want to live in the roommate houses that Monte showed?
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh yeah, we're getting, all right. So I picked my guests well. Feel good. Okay, Nick, question.
So we've kind of like in all of these presentations talked about both community and density going hand in hand. But when done improperly, density and community can kind of have an inverse relationship. I think of the double loaded corridors overlooking our skyline there. I don't talk to any of my neighbors. I don't know if anyone else does, then kind of avoid eye contact in the elevator. So I'm curious how you, and Monty's kind of touched on this with the roommate houses and the sound dampening, but how, especially like in the cottage court that you guys have talked about, how have you seen those interactions, and are there certain design elements that we can look at that help support community interaction even when you're living close together?
Who wants to go? I can start. So one of the funny things is when someone says, well, Will, what if you don't like your neighbor? I'm like, well, what do you do if you don't like your neighbor? And so it's really interesting because there is a culture of housing. And so I'm not best friends with my neighbors, but just like Monty even alluded, we watch out for each other. So in a high-rise elevator corridor combo, unfortunately, I'll also say in my master's degree, I had a student from India, and he said, I lived in an apartment complex where everyone just kept their doors open. So again, we as a culture and we as how we talk to each other is also a huge issue that we need to be dealing with. But also, we need to look at how we create, just like what Steve put up, as it's patterns. We do need to interact as humans, and we need to interact in a way that actually is organic, not forced. And as long as we start working on more of the organic, just like, even though Monty, I could agree with you, I have to live alone, but I do like people close by. And so when you look at your structures, I mean, it's not for everyone, but we need more of those options.
I will say I have lived in double loaded corridors, built apartments. I totally agree with you. Nobody really wants to get to know their neighbors, and then you kind of stare at the carpet during the elevator. Now I live in a renovated warehouse loft, but there's not a single double loaded corridor. Everybody enters their unit from the outside. We have these little lushly planted walkways in between the industrial stuff. It's the most social place I've ever lived. And I think it is because of the quality of the outdoor space is where people kind of hang out, chat. Oh, so much more.
I don't think you want to get stuck with in a corridor. It's a dangerous feel. It doesn't feel good versus the outdoor going in and out. You feel I think when we set up the built environment, we should be taking these things into consideration where we're passing by each other, but we also could run from one another. If you had to, you could run away. And those corridors, they're not good, and they're not fun, and they do feel dangerous. And a lot of the women that live in my roommate house tell me they don't want to live in a place like that. They feel really unsafe. So it's
More questions.
Well, I just want to say I enjoyed the presentation, but I didn't see any mention about solar. And speaking of the future, is what we're going to do when these parking decks are no longer needed and they're still standing there. What can we use them?
Decks are pretty tough if they're sloped. It's pretty tough to reuse them, but they are now increased. Sometimes developers are building them to be retrofitted. When you remove the ramps, it becomes a courtyard, and it's more expensive to do it that way. So I don't see much of that in Atlanta being built that way, but yeah, the parking, I mean, I think that for this purposes of this study, which in looking more at the single family homes, I'm really glad we have had some discussion of parking because yeah, as soon as you're bringing in more people, you are, I wish we could say if you were not bringing in more cars, but in most of DeKalb County, the reality is, yeah, you're going to be bringing in more cars and finding the space to park, you know, how is it legal in DeKalb? Do a lot of neighborhoods only allow residents to park on and take the on-street parking?
It's pretty open, but there are some streets like around high schools, for instance, where there's permanent parking. But for the most part, it's not illegal to park on the street, but it probably is not enough room.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
But also DeKalb's pretty spread out in areas, so there's really no on-street parking because everyone's parking in their driveway too.
But the streets are wide enough.
But the streets are wide enough and you could.
Yeah.
But again, also again, back to culture, we're like, why is there a car in front of my house? I mean, it is weird,
I know.
but literally we say that.
Yeah. Most residents believe that the parking spaces on the street in front of their house are theirs.
Yes.
They're not. No, that's public's right of
It's
way.
also education, yes.
So I might not saw it, but it seemed like none of those designs took in the concept of solar energy.
Yeah, we didn't see much solar. Anybody, any comments about solar, Steve or Rick or Monty? Solar energy or on the utilities and systems? We've got a comment coming in from Eric, one of the students.
I will say with that, when you started to talk about like solar and generating energy on your parcel, that goes back into the discussion with all the regulations that surround energy in particular. I got worked on a few projects where we have wanted to put solar on the roof of a new development. And the hardest part of that was actually negotiating with the local utility on how are we going to sell excess energy that we're generating back to the grid, and how are we going to stop buying energy when we don't need it. And that
Yeah. Georgia does not make selling energy back.
LNPSA, the Public Service Commission elections are this year.
That's true.
So just pay attention to that, because if they make policy that makes the net metering possible by policy, then you'll see a lot more solar.
Gary, just to let you know that we have 4 solar on my cottage court and they're net zero. They pay $15 a month in fees to Georgia Power because you have to pay Georgia Power something.
I hope, yeah, Monty, jump in. Are you guys able to?
We haven't been able to make it work as good on smaller projects. We're making it work when I'm in the process of buying like a hospital right now and turn it into mixed use and SROs. And so we're buying all the utilities for everybody, where we're buying it in like big bulk, then we're figuring out a way to make it work then. But when it's all split up and different people are buying their utilities, we haven't been able to. We here in Texas, we're probably similar to y'all too. We're not very good at this stuff. We just burn oil out. I mean, like we burn, we just like it's never going to end. So still, but that we're able to make it work better financially on the bigger deals.
I want to apologize to everybody online that we don't have most of the classrooms at Georgia Tech have cameras at the front of the room and the back. This one doesn't. So you guys haven't been able to see any of us. And before anybody leaves, we're going to all come right up and wave to everybody online. But, more questions? Mike?
Actually, I had one, not specifically solar, but general technology in general. I had a question about in the readings, thinking about things like some of the projects that we read about were the autonomous vehicles added to streets and things. AI, I'm thinking telehealth for seniors and things. Some of those things could be a boon for seniors to get around and to use, but that also requires incorporating a lot of data, wireless, and other infrastructure into these buildings. So I'm just curious as to what people are thinking in terms of how that's gonna all get incorporated into some of these designs and some of these buildings.
I think that sounds like a perfect one of the final projects.
Just wrote your thesis.
I couldn't resist.
And
But yeah.
Ellen, I'll just, if you live in DeKalb, you may have heard that MARTA is cutting bus routes.
Yes.
So there are whole neighborhoods that are losing their bus route. So that kind of thinking is exactly what we need, because there's whole neighborhoods that will need to find some other option for mass transit. And, they have a couple options they're working on with MARTA Reach. But yeah, we need to have that mobility question answered. Yeah.
We definitely need some of the students to focus on the mobility.
But, and Ellen, I think, that question brings up a good point. I'm thinking of Stockholm. 50% of households in Stockholm are single person, and it works because you have the city. And so I think the city is a solution to aging. Rural areas are going to be, like what we worked in South Dakota. The technology is going to be a real issue, a real problem. And that's not just for wireless, but for solar as well. It just doesn't pay back because you can't sell the electricity back at a reasonable price, and that's all kind of state mandated. But I think the city is really key to how we can live alone and still thrive.
Absolutely. We have to. None of us are going to be able to age alone at all well. Not at all. So, more questions, comments, thoughts as maybe I'll sort of flip it around to say, both from the aging in placers and from the speakers, what thoughts, what would you most like to see the students explore and investigate and be able to really help you think about? What do you think? So Steve, I'll start with you. What's the next, how could the students best build on what you just did, but now working with actual clients already living in a home? What do you think's next?
Yeah, so we're working on adult family home, and I think it's on our website. Keep in mind, by 2030, we'll have a need for 5 million care workers, and those jobs will go. 5 million care jobs will be unfulfilled. We actually have more than that. So they're real. I think the big challenge with aging is the care deficit, and we don't have the family structure where people can devote their time to caring for others. So how does housing address Monte showed us some of the ways to do this, but how does housing address this care deficit? How does sharing come into play without making it assisted living or even congregate housing? That's the real challenge.
Right. I know that the bus is about to leave for the aging in placers. Sorry, I want everybody coming up to the front of the bus. We gotta wave and say hi. Students too. Everybody up.
Well, hey, while they're leaving, if this is for the aging in placers, I want to say something while they're leaving, if you don't mind. So I think a big thing.
We just want to wave and say hi to you guys. So you can finally see us.
I think along the lines of what Steve just said, we gotta design and build stuff that think about where you want to die. Where do you want to die? What kind of room do you want to be in? What do you want to be looking at? Where can you be in a place that you choose while you're still sane? You can choose those places where you want to be. And that sounds bad when I talk to people about it, but we got to design that because you're going to die.
Thank you.
Can't disagree with you, Monte, but.
Nobody wants to talk about it very much, so let's go.
I could build a medical center on the property.
Absolutely.
Take care of other residents.
Absolutely share.
Good layout, you know, just like-
My community is honestly is. All right. Big thank you to the. Awesome presentations. I know there's so much we really didn't get to talk about, but we will. I hope students, do you feel inspired?
Yes.
You feel ready to really do something exciting? Yeah. All right.
Aging in place, you need to go.
Recorded it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you guys. I hate to cut the conversation short, but I think we are losing the aging in placers, and we're about to lose all the students too. I know, Kevin, you got your hand up. Sorry. Yeah, again. So what did you want to say? Kevin, now?
Sorry, if what?
Thank you so much.
I do it so often, you know, it's just like.
Let's stay in touch. Yeah. Everybody, oh, you can get her.
I know that.
Thank you so much.
That's not.
Yeah, I have.